While the focus of the national media and political junkies is understandably trained upon the 2024 presidential and congressional elections, Convention of States Action volunteers know that the action is just as vibrant and significant in the state houses, and those activists have accomplished a great deal in this vital election year. In 2024, COS teams have thus far organized or scheduled Surge Days in 33 states. Surge Days enable the grassroots to mobilize at their respective state capitals to engage with lawmakers. As a result, over 370 state legislators across the country have co-sponsored the COS Action Resolution, calling for an Article 5 convention to propose fiscal restraints on the federal government, term limits on Congress and federal officials, and limits on the scope and power of the federal government. In addition to the 19 states that have already adopted that resolution, with 34 being necessary, a total of 21 additional states have filed our Article 5 resolution during the current legislative session and assigned it to various committees for consideration. In committee, COS resolutions have been favorably reported in several states. The resolution was approved by the Hawaii Senate Committee on Public Safety and Intergovernmental and Military Affairs with the unanimous support of the Democrats on the panel. Meanwhile, in the Bay State, the COS resolution passed the Joint Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs, which included 13 Democratic committee members and 3 Republican members. The Pennsylvania Senate State Government Committee approved the COS resolution in late April. That committee is chaired by COS supporter Senator Chris Dush. In Iowa, the COS resolution passed the House Subcommittee and the House State Government Committee. The resolution was also approved by the Idaho Senate Judiciary and Rules Committee, marking our first time passing a committee in Idaho. North Carolina is on the verge of becoming the 20th state to join the Convention of States movement. The North Carolina House passed the COS resolution last year, and the Senate now has the opportunity to do likewise before the current legislative session ends. When the North Carolina Senate gives the nod, only 14 more state legislatures are needed to call the convention. And we'll be ready, because COS activists have also been working to pass 34 Ready legislation, which is model legislation that frames the processes for selecting commissioners who will represent their states at an Article 5 convention. It also lays out penalties for commissioners who might deviate from their instructions. So far this year, 34 Ready legislation has passed the Missouri Senate Committee on Rules, Joint Rules, Resolutions, and Ethics, as well as the Kansas House Committee on Federal and State Affairs. 34 Ready legislation was also introduced in the Mississippi and Kentucky legislatures, the latter of which has 16 COS resolution co-sponsored. But what if your state has already passed the COS resolution? The grassroots army does not lie dormant, working to maintain relationships with state legislators and championing bills regarding issues such as election integrity, parental rights, and state sovereignty issues that correspond with principles of federalism, freedom, and fundamental rights. We refer to this as F3 legislation. In Georgia, the local COS team partnered with Heritage Action to champion 3 election integrity bills, 2 of which were successfully adopted by the legislature. The COS Louisiana team has made its presence well known in Baton Rouge, and their work has yielded significant progress. HB 763, another piece of election integrity legislation, passed the Louisiana House and is currently pending in the Senate. Meanwhile, HB 114, which establishes a clear process for updating the state's voter rolls, passed the legislature and awaits the governor's signature. Legislation that bans international government organizations such as the UN, the WHO, and the World Economic Forum from asserting any jurisdiction in Louisiana was signed into law by Governor Landry on May 28th. In Tennessee, COS grassroots worked with Alliance Defending Freedom to move parental rights and education legislation through the legislature and to the desk of Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. The COS Kansas team toiled diligently to shepherd land rights legislation in the form of SB 370 through the Senate Committee on Federal and State Affairs. Legislation banning transgender surgery from being performed upon minors passed the South Carolina legislature and was signed into law by Governor Henry McMaster. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed HB 3156, which prohibits ranked choice voting. The Sooner State grassroots worked to get this bill through the legislature, again working with Heritage Action. These significant accomplishments are the result of a commitment to first principles, personal sacrifice, and perseverance by our grassroots activists. The legislative process can be excruciating. Individual legislators must be convinced to introduce or co-sponsor bills, which must then clear subcommittees, full committees, and the whims of majority leaders and speakers before even being considered by the whole of one chamber or the other. All of it takes a great deal of time, energy, and follow-through. This is the kind of commitment that it takes to save and maintain a nation. To be a part of one of the most consequential political movements in American history, sign the petition below and add your time and talent to this noble effort at conventionofstates.com. And now, you're up to date with Convention of States.